The following program is a presentation of the Options Insider Radio Network. For more programs, visit www.theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio in iTunes. And now, it's time for the show that breaks down the options market. From unusual activity alerts to market updates and trading strategies. If it involves puts and calls, then our all-star panel will break it down. It's time to hit the Option Block. With your host, Mark Longo from theoptionsinsider.com and co-hosts Mike Tusaw from KnowYourOptionsInc.com and Mark Sebastian from OptionPit.com. The Option Block is brought to you by Options Express. Don't spend time worrying about your broker. At Options Express, security, stability, and account protection are the most important responsibilities to our customers. Secure account access, enhanced financial protection, entrusted with over $7 billion in customer assets, established financial stability. Options Express lets you trade with confidence. Stocks, options, and futures, all in one account. Trade with a specialist. Visit optionsexpress.com/OXradio to open your free account. Options Express is a member of FINRA, SIPC, and NFA.
Welcome back to the Option Block, and I hope all of our listeners out there are weathering this choppy market fairly well. My name is Mark Longo from theoptionsinsider.com, and I will be your host for this Eternia edition of the Option Block, and I am joined by none other than the masters of the universe themselves, starting off with good old Ram Man, Uncle Mike Tusaw from Know Your Options Inc. Ram Man, how are you doing this fine Thursday afternoon?
By the power of Grayskull, I am here. I have the power.
I gave you a nice obscure one, Ram Man, so you can enjoy that.
But you know what? He's one of the ones that actually knows of Prince Adam's secret, so I feel privileged.
Oh, there you go. He might be in the inner circle, yes.
I think he is.
And then, of course, we are joined in the rotating Options Express seat by none other than Evil Lynn himself. Good old John Grigas from Options Express.
Oh, God, I wish I had boned up on my He-Man before I walked into this episode of the Option Block. I am not too familiar with some of these smaller characters that you guys are talking about, but I'll try to do my best to keep up.
If it would make you feel better, I can always refer to you as Tila instead. She was a little bit of a larger character. Or perhaps She-Ra, He-Man's sister. How about that?
Oh, they're all women? I got to be a girl?
We're just mixing it up. We're mixing up the demographics a little bit on the Option Block today.
How long did that show even run for? I mean, was it?
Oh, forever. That show was on forever.
And Tusaw, you said your son likes this, or is it back in run? Is it brand new?
No, my son doesn't know about. My son's into the Transformers.
Oh, okay.
So, but he plays in my old He-Man tent over at Grandma and Grandpa's house, though.
Yeah,
so he is aware.
My little guy has recently discovered my He-Man DVDs and has begun watching them, and now he runs around the house saying, "By the power of Grayskull," with a little sword above his head. So he's brought me back into the He-Man fold quite a bit. I suppose that would make me... I always like the bad guys, though, so I don't know. He-Man's kind of boring. But okay, I guess I can be He-Man for today's episode.
Be Skeletor, come on.
Skeletor is pretty cool. Okay, I can be Skeletor. And, of course, we are missing Orko this episode. Good old Seabass.
And he is perfect
He
for that.
fits perfectly for Orko.
Is.
Why, is Orko crazy?
Yeah, he's a little crazy, little small guy with a squeaky voice. Perfect Sebastian analog in every respect. All right, and with the group assembled, we will dive right into the trading block.
There is a place where legends are born, where the light confronts the dark, a world of incredible mystery, magic, and adventure. A world where colossal powers will collide in a battle to control the universe.
The Trading Block.
and welcome to the Trading Block. This is the section of the show where we discuss what is trading, what is moving the markets today. And it was an interesting one today. We were up, we were unched, we were down, we were unched, we were up again. So a little bit of a yo-yo market today. Not entirely unexpected given the light volumes we're still seeing. These markets are relatively easy to nudge in one direction or the other given these circumstances today, and we ended up closing up on the day for everything except the NASDAQ. S&P closed up about 2.2 handles to 1267.64. The Dow closed up 64 and a quarter to 11961.52. The NASDAQ taking a beating down 7, almost 8 handles to 2623. I think at one point today it was down 20 handles, so that has come back a little bit as well. And the good old VIX cash ended up a little bit lighter on the day. It was up around 3 or 4 points at one point, then ended up about a 1.42 points on the day to 22.74. I guess we can dive in with that then. Good old Seabass isn't here to pontificate on his CBOP, but I think people are finally starting to curtail their put selling for a change. We've seen every time this market's dipped, we've seen premium stay the same or come in on the downside as soon as the dip slowed. And now we're finally, given today's activity, especially in the morning, we saw some of this premium finally come up a little bit. It looks like there's a exuberance in volatility finally, and most of it in the areas of the downside spectrum where we expect a lot of hedging activity in days like today. So people are finally not selling puts and actually starting to buy some puts. Is that what you guys are seeing out there?
Yeah, the VIX up almost to 23 today. I didn't see what it was intraday, but closed at 2276. I think, seeing some of those pictures, I was off work yesterday, but looking at those riots out in Greece, I mean, it looks like they're going to default, and if they roll it out, they're going to default anyway. But I was looking at the U.S. exposure. It said they only had $42 billion invested out in Greece, so it doesn't look like it'd be too bad. But I guess it's more or less a domino effect of what happens to Ireland, Spain, in Portugal. But yeah, I mean, with the Dow up almost 65 points and the VIX almost at 23, it's kind of strange to see it kind of popping here with the Dow being up. But yeah. I think people are buying those. People are nervous. You could definitely they were on the sidelines for a few weeks here, and now it seems like they're buying puts.
Yeah, it looks like the VIX range today, it opened around 21.5 and got up to about 24.65 was the high on the day.
Wow.
Today. Got down as low as 20.81 as well. So it had quite the range, nearly a 4-point range on the day. So a lot of vacillations going on in the VIX cash. Of course, the future still in contango out there, the VIX futures. So a lot of interesting activity. Are you seeing people coming in and scooping up some protection over on the OX side, Mr. Grigas?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, people are a little bit nervous. I mean, with the move we've had, we're down 7.5%. At the beginning of this week, I had stated that I don't think we're going to see another a 7th straight week for the Dow being down. And I got to tell you, yesterday when I wasn't at work, I go, well, it looks like I missed that one. But there a lot of people have been coming in buying puts to hedge their portfolio. Kind of actually using derivatives or options for what their intended purpose was. I honestly think we're going to rally again tomorrow. I don't think we're going to have a down day, and I bet you'll see the VIX up again.
I should say for our listeners, too, we are monitoring the first significant earnings announcement in a while, and it is happening live during the show. RIMM is coming out as we speak, and they should
sell
any minute now. Yeah, they closed
Bye.
35.3, and there we go. There's the market right there. Sellers and buyers for RIMM, all on this one show. And looks like in the after hours, they're still hovering around 35.5, so I guess the number hasn't come out yet. But yeah, we'll keep an eye on that for you and give you some live analysis perhaps later in the show. Speaking of names that are trading quite a bit, Mr. T, your Ford is looking pretty angry these days. Some downgrades, some guidance coming out. I would not get downgrades, but the guidance not looking too heavy out there in Ford. What were you watching out there in Ford today?
Well, a couple things with Ford. A couple things have come out since the last time this Eternian group has gotten together. They announced that the next quarter's earnings are probably not going to be what the analysts were expecting them to be. So now the analyst expectations are, I believe it was 62 cents instead of 64 cents. But on a good note, one thing that debuted today are natural gas taxis that Ford is making. They debuted in LA and Chicago. So it's one of the ones with Ford. It's like they have a lot of like little nagging injuries for the short term, but it seems like they just keep announcing good things for the long term in terms of paying down debt, adding employees, and things like that. And On the strategy block today, I'm going to talk about how to play, or how we've been playing, a stock that's just kind of annoying like this in the short term, but something with which we believe in for the long term.
Well, we'll look forward to that. And speaking of annoying names, it's ironic. One of the few names that was up today throughout the rally was actually Cisco, a name that has been determinedly down every day for pretty much the last couple of weeks. Finally saw a spark of life today, up about 1.5%, given the fact that even during the height of the downturn, Cisco was still rallying. So one of the few tech names to be up today as well. Tech just taking a beating across the board. The tech sector in NASDAQ is definitely underperforming the market as a whole these days, with NVIDIA and a few others really leading them down. We'll see what RIMM does and how they fare this afternoon. And, of course, a lot of activity in the energy and commodity front as well. So, Mr. Grigas, Mr. Tusaw, what were you guys watching today in the commodity rundown?
I've been watching that 10-year, 30-year note. I mean, if you've been watching it, it has been in a trend for the last 3.5 months. And, we had some sideways action end of last week. Early this week, and it looks like it was going to, find a top, but not the case. I mean, you could tell with the action that we had over the last 2 days that there were a lot of shorts up here. And if you take a look at the chart, they actually covered here in the last 2 days because it just popped extremely high. That and the dollar index. I mean, I think that's a good hedge if you do trade futures in your Options Express account or other accounts. Take a look at the dollar right now. I mean, it looks like it's put in a nice bottom too as well. I did not get a chance to take a look at what crude did yesterday. I do know that it fell about $5 yesterday. I think August is upon us on the front month here in the next week. But so crude flat at 95.38. I know I mentioned soybeans last Thursday when I was on the show. I put in a short mini contract on the SEP contract at a 756, I think it was. And we're at, no, that isn't it here. Corn. Yeah, SEP corn, CU11. And we're trading at 684. So I got 60 cents into that one. So, I think there's a little
dinner is on you, sir.
You got it. You can't make much. You can't make much on those minis. I wish they went from a 5,000 bushel contract to a 2,500, but they went to 1,000 bushels. So I'm only making $10 every penny, which isn't much. So it's more or less just to kind of
trade more contracts.
Put my stake out there, and that's what I do when it goes against me. I add when it goes against me. I don't like that when it goes in my favor. But it's nice to be right every once in a while. I mean, I did read a report about a month ago about the leverage of people in major private equity firms was growing here. We were getting to those 2007, 2008 levels. So I think a lot of these commodities have been hot. Sans the dollar index and sans the interest rate futures, you see a little bit of profit taking, even though the CPI came out very inflationary this morning.
Tusaw, how were your metals? How was the BBI today? Were you rolling a lot of metals puts today?
Nah, I could have done what I didn't even have to show up today from the way it was. I remember a couple of years ago, right before, or about 3 or 4 years ago, when before we went into Iraq the first time. Or not the first time, but under the second George Bush, I remember Charles Barkley had an interesting comment. He had said, it's an interesting time when the best golfer is black and Tiger Woods, the best rapper is white and Eminem, and Germany doesn't want to go to war. And right now, I feel kind of the same way with gold and silver. It's an interesting time in the markets, or at least in comparison these last couple of months, when gold and silver are the most boring things with which I have exposure to.
Yeah, Ford probably taking up a little bit more of that BBI today than gold and silver, I'd wager.
Yeah, well, we got to wait on the strategy block to find out about that.
Ooh, a tease.
Yeah, I'm interested to hear about that. You got to have a bullish strategy on Ford, don't you? I mean, I went to an auto show on Monday, and they had that Taurus SHO there, and it was you're right. I mean, they keep coming out with better and better long-term prospects, and that nat gas. I heard an interesting article that the equivalent of a gallon of nat gas is like $1.89 compared to what gasoline is $4 these days. Potential's there.
A lot of good things going on at Ford, I think.
All right, then, and with that, we're going to close out the old trading block, and we're going to roll right into the odd block.
Oh, He-Man, how you vex me!
The Odd Block.
And welcome to the Odd Block. This is the section of the show where we discuss the interesting and or the unusual options activity that's lighting up the tape today. And tried to look for some evil ones today, in keeping with my Skeletor namesake, yet I couldn't find anything particularly evil. It wasn't too much really lighting up the tape that was super exciting today. We're going to kick things off with the name of the hour, RIMM. There we saw a lot of activity today in RIMM, as you can imagine, with the earnings coming out right now. This is the name that lately has been doing about 100,000 contracts a day. They did over 315,000 today, so big day for RIMM. And with that much activity going on, interestingly enough, there wasn't a clear trend in the paper we saw going up, which I guess is emblematic of what people are thinking about the same. Look, on this very show, we got sellers and buyers of RIMM both on the same show. So yeah, we saw a diverse array of opinion going up today in most of the paper in RIMM. This was an early report of over 100,000 contracts. Obviously, we've blown through that. As not surprisingly, we saw the bulk of the activity, or the good chunk of it, in these one-day options, essentially now these June weeklies at this point, that are expiring tomorrow. And we saw a lot of activity on the June 32 half puts, with a lot of buyers coming in and picking those up for around 54 cents a piece. That strike closed the day with 26,000 contracts, so a lot of activity on that strike. Then we also saw the June 30 puts were active as well, but they were actually a little bit more mixed, with a good split between buyers and sellers on that strike. Same thing with the June 40 calls. These were some of the most active on the day, with about 23,000 on that strike. So 33,000 June 30 puts went up today, 26,000 June 32 half puts. A good chunk of those buyers on the June 32 halves. 28,000 of the June 37 half calls and 23,000 of the June 40 calls. The June 40 calls were some of the most actives earlier in the day, with a lot of buyers actually on those. So I'd say surprisingly, I think a lot of the paper was leaning towards the bullish side if I had to pick one direction in this mixed paper flow. So maybe they're on Uncle Mike's team as opposed to Mr. Grigas' team. Uncle Mike, Mr. Grigas, you guys been watching RIMM at all today?
Nah, I'm not a fan of RIMM.
Not a fan of RIMMs, yet he yells bye, bye, bye 3 times at the beginning of the show.
I'm getting the spirit of the day trading, though, you know? I'm trying to get into your day trading world, and then I'll buy it, then sell it, and then I can sleep at night.
Let's see. And in February, 6 months ago, in February, we were trading around $70. Stock's trading for $35.
Yeah, it has not been exactly a banner year for RIMM. They've seen.
I don't know, and I can't imagine why. I mean, who really is their competition? I mean, what products go out there? Oh, that's right.
Yeah, there's some other thing out there. It's synonymous with some fruit. I forgot the name of it. Looks like Apple rallied back. Speaking of which, Apple rallied back quite a bit today as well. They're down below almost 320 at one point today, so they've closed at 325.16 today. So Apple coming back a little bit. But yeah, RIMM has had just dire days for RIMM lately. They're getting their clocks cleaned. Their smartphones aren't really competitive in the smartphone category anymore, unless you're very super hardcore with wanting to do a lot of email and you need a physical keyboard. That small group, or if you're really into enterprise activity and you want to have a secure encrypted environment to do your enterprise email, that's about the people who are really still hardcore on BlackBerry. Everybody else has migrated. I've seen just in a lot of the firms we work with, and looking at my wife's firm, which is a large consulting firm, just a few years ago they had banned iPhones outright as insecure and unusable, and they were mostly on BlackBerries and other devices, and now they've all switched over. 1,000 consultants have all switched over pretty much to iPhones. So the iPhone is eating their lunch, even in the enterprise category, which has been RIMM's core business for a long time.
Yeah, we're seeing the same thing here. I have the head of execution. Saw him on the train. He's like, "Oh, let me check out your phone." He goes, he's holding his BlackBerry and he's holding the Android Evo. Screen is 2.5 times as big as the BlackBerry. And he goes, "Yeah, I just pre-ordered this today. I just wanted to get a feel for it." So I mean, you could just see that. Think about it though. They do make ones with physical keyboards, but then when you're not using the email to type, fairly long emails, you can watch TV, listen to music, or watch Netflix. I mean, you can't do that on a RIMM screen.
Yeah, the variety of other things you could do on a device, and I have a similar device to yours. I have the Droid X, and that screen is the same size. It's enormous as the Evo. And once you start playing around with one of those devices, you certainly can't get a device with the screen that big on anything but Android at this point, and even the iPhone isn't, unless you go iPad, which is bigger, obviously. But there's not much going on in the RIMM. I mean, the RIMM screens are probably half the iPhone screens, So you're talking a lot of small real estate if you want to do anything besides compose some email. So they've kind of relegated themselves to a very small niche of the market, and they have yet to burst out of that. Some of their recent attempts have not really been too successful. All right, that is going to do it for the old odd block, and with that, we're going to roll right into the interview block.
The interview block.
And welcome to the interview block. This is the section of the show where we pull some poor soul kicking and screaming onto the program. Today, quite literally, actually. Today's guest is Paul Price. Paul, welcome to the program.
Oh, thank you. Good to be here.
I bet you didn't think you were going to be on a podcast today, did you?
No, that's a surprise.
Can you hear us pretty well? We're using my cell phone speaker, so
Yes.
we're just...
Sounds surprisingly good, actually.
Yeah, so, Paul, you're a doctor and a trader. Tell us a little bit about yourself, real briefly.
Okay, well, I was originally a dentist years ago, and I got seduced by the market and started out as a hobby, became a passion, and I changed full-time in April of 1987, about 6 months before the 87 crash. And I made a good reputation getting people out before the crash and back in right afterwards. So that got me off to a good start in the industry.
Good timing.
Yeah, would that make you a trentist when you were doing both? Were you a durator, like a dender, or a trentist? I mean, what did you call yourself? Or was it a dentist trader?
Well, actually, I used to tell people that I went from filling teeth to filling pockets.
So I like that. So tell us a little bit about what you think is going on. I mean, obviously, kind of a crazy day in the market. What are your thoughts?
Well, I was traveling in the afternoon, so I just saw the morning action. From what I see is, tech, when I looked at a chart, a graph that was in my article today on our profits, and it showed that tech stocks on a valuation basis are the cheapest they've been since about 1990.
Holy cow.
So people really, really hate tech, and so that makes me want to look at it closely to see about getting in some bargains. Also, the bearishness on the AAIA surveys and things like that is getting pretty pervasive, pretty thick, and so I think we could be near a short-term bottom at least.
Yeah, if you watch the NASDAQ today, NASDAQ was leading every other index down quite a bit, and it did close down the day. It closed, I think at one point it was down about 20 handles, and it closed the day down nearly 8, so it bounced back a little bit, but still NASDAQ is definitely underperforming the rest of the indices these days with all these tech names getting clobbered like NVIDIA and a number of others.
Did you guys talk at all about that swing Apple had today?
No, we were talking mostly just now about RIMM, because RIMM earnings are coming out right now, and we're debating the option flow in RIMM and what's been going on out there. But Apple had a nice bounce. I know when you and I talked earlier today, Mark, it was trading around the 320 handle and closed around 325.
It traded down to 318 and then back up to above 325. I mean, I was feeling pretty proud of that straddle that I threw out there. But I don't know. What do you think about Apple right now, Paul?
I've been selling straddles on Apple for about 8 to 10 months, and they're working out real good because the stock is just kind of stuck in neutral.
Oh, wow. So you don't think it's going anywhere from here right now? You like it at 325? You're neither bearish nor bullish?
Yeah, I'm fairly neutral. I mean, I would have maybe a slight upward bias to Apple from 325, but not enough to buy it outright. But I've been selling $300 puts and 350, 360 calls, and it's been working out very nicely.
It's a nice strangle.
Oh, so you've been strangling Apple for a while then. Interesting. Yeah, it has been in this 300 to 350 range for quite a while now.
Now, Paul, I got a question for you. With Apple, are you altering that strategy at all with the earnings announcement coming up right after the July expiration, or do you think you might still continue to do that even into August?
Well, I'm a little bit longer term. I actually have them out to January, and my calls are covered and my puts are naked, so I don't really worry. If it moves up, it's okay with me, and as long as it doesn't move down a lot, I'm in good shape.
Okay, gotcha. So you actually did a, when you say your calls are covered, you did a covered call, or did you do a bear call spread on it, or how did you?
He almost puts on like this put stupid strategy where He uses a covered call. It's kind of an interesting strategy. You want to explain your strategy?
Yeah, I do a lot of buy rights, which are really, synthetic two calls, but two puts, I should say. But, I often buy the stock on dips and write the puts when it's low, and then after I get enough move, I'll sell calls above the market or at the market to turn it into a buy right with a naked put attached. And it sets up a wide band of profitability where if the stock stays the same, if it goes up, if it goes down, 10 to 15%, in all those cases, you come out looking pretty good.
Oh, very interesting.
Really long.
Yeah, so many times I write for 6 months, a year, even after 2013. I don't mind giving time.
Gotcha.
And do you use those short puts to leg into those long equity positions as well?
Yeah, that's what I do. I only write puts on stock that I wouldn't mind being sized if necessary. And I would say about 80% of the time I don't get put, but the 20% of the time I take the stock and then I turn it into covered calls later.
So it's a variation on your rolling stupid strangle there, Tusa.
There you go. The short stupid or the long stupid.
I just got the plain stupid. What does that mean? So yeah, we're Paul's been a writer with the Street for a while. I mean, do you have any other kind of interesting thoughts on what you're seeing right now? It's been kind of weird. What do you think about the grease thing?
Well, I don't think it's a surprise. I mean, you don't cure, too much debt by giving people more debt. It's just, who's left holding the bag is really, the end result. And it's kind of like they did with Fannie and Freddie and everything else. It ends up on some taxpayer somewhere, and here it's going to be, it's like Germany and the Euro world as opposed to the Fed and the U.S. taxpayer. But it's just amazing that they never seem to let the people who made the original loans get hurt. Mm-hmm. And that doesn't seem right to me.
Yeah. So would you say it's like giving somebody that has cavities more candy?
Yeah, pretty much.
So, Paul,
Good for business if you're a dentist.
Good for business if you're a dentist.
So, Paul, aside from Apple, what other tech names are you active in right now and running your short strangle strategy on?
I like Applied Materials, AMAT. I like QLogic, QLGC. Those are a couple that look real good to me right now. And also Flextronics is cheap enough to buy and write puts FLEX.
Either of you guys, Sebastian or Paul, have you guys been watching RIMM at all? Are you active in RIMM at all with the earnings coming out the evening before expiration?
Yeah, I was actually just talking to our friend Doris from Reuters about that today. I was looking on LiveVol, and 30-day IV was the highest it had been since, into one of their earnings announcements since 2009. The straddle was trading at about, for a move of almost 10% on earnings. And, I was noticing that there were some people actually scooping in and actually buying up those calls and puts. My thought process was that now that RIMM's a third of its price, even with the increased volatility, people may not mind buying some of that premium. What were you guys seeing in it?
Yes, what we were just talking about before we dialed you guys up is the RIMM activity was surprisingly mixed today, given, you're right, how high those vol levels were. We were seduced by those vol levels, those strangles. That 30-40 strangle was too tempting to ignore for us. But we saw mixed activity on that 30 strike and on the 40 strike. People were buying 40 calls and buying 30 puts, which surprised me. So there is some sentiment out there for some significant movement. I'd say if it was mixed, if there was any way the paper seemed to be leaning, it seemed to be leaning more towards the bullish upside call buying than anything.
Yeah.
At these levels, not entirely surprising, but still, given the recent history and current outlook for RIMM, bullish sentiment is not exactly what I expected.
Yeah, well, maybe it's so bad that maybe people thought, how much worse could it get? Yeah, I was actually looking at July-August trade. What about, where I was looking at selling the July 37 strangle and buying the August against it. It looks like a double calendar. Because that July ball was really juicy. Even with the June right in front of it, there was about a 20 ball point gap between those two. So if you, I thought that looked like a really interesting trade. I don't know. Did you get a look at RIMM at all, Paul?
I tell you, I don't have any position because for me, nothing matters on the fundamentals anymore. It's all about market share decrease, and if it's going to keep losing market share, it's just going down, and it doesn't really matter how cheap it looks if it's losing market share continuously.
Yeah, as we say this over a BlackBerry.
You're one of the last adherents. Well, I will say this for BlackBerry: their speakerphone seems to be working out all right. So.
Yeah, I was about to say the same thing. They got a great speakerphone.
That should be their new ad campaign. Talk to all your friends at once on our BlackBerry speakerphone. Well, yeah, I'm looking at the numbers now, and they did over 300,000 contracts today in RIMM, which is about 3 times their average. And the bulk of it was all front month. I mean, there was, as juicy as July was, there wasn't that much activity out there. You saw some 10,000 contracts on certain strikes, but we were seeing 3 times that on a lot of strikes in June.
Actually, July was so juicy, I almost considered backspreading it against the June. So, like a short time spread could get the June gamma, and then you would have been fine with that July collapsing. I mean, it was unbelievably juicy. It was like a extra ripe, vodka-soaked watermelon. It was so juicy.
Yeah, we were saying
that's juicy.
We were saying this on the last show that this front month this RIMM June is just pure gamma at this point. I mean, earnings the evening before expiration. That's a definition of gamma.
What's great about that is when you're talking to people, the day before expiration, you can actually show them what a straddle really represents into an earnings, because you get a real idea of what it actually represents.
That's true. Looks like the 35 straddle went out around, with the stock at 35.33, the straddle went out at about 340 at 370. So, yeah. They're expecting about 10% move in this baby, it looks like. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Well, Paul, thank you for joining us today. Anything else you guys would like to add?
No, just, hey, I'm speaking at the CBOE on Tuesday. Everybody, please register. All right, I want 1,000 registrants. Okay, so go to the Option Institute. It's Tuesday the 21st. Register. Listen to me talk. It's going to be great. Paul, do you have anything you'd like to kind of promote out there?
No, not right now.
Option Profits. Go to thestreet.com and you can get a good idea from me and Paul every day.
Sounds good. Well, thank you, Paul, for joining us, and thank you, Orko, as well, for joining us remotely from New York. And we'll see you back in studio, so to speak, next week.
Well, yes, and can I just say how excited I am for the live event? That's going to rule.
And that's going to do it for the interview block, and we'll roll right into the Express Block.
The Express Block, brought to you by Options Express. Options Express lets you trade where and when you want for every level of trading. From advanced charting, free daily trading ideas, and free educational resources, Options Express is the online broker for all traders. Best of all, Options Express allows you to trade stocks, options, and futures all in a single account on powerful yet easy-to-use trading platforms, including mobile devices. Visit optionsexpress.com/OXradio for your free account. Options Express is a member of FINRA, SIPC, and NFA.
And welcome to the Express Block. This is the section of the show where John Grigas runs amok with his tales of woe and contingent orders. So, Mr. Grigas, take it away, sir.
Yeah, before I get to the land of contingent orders, just wanted to shout out the new promotion that we have going on at Options Express. Started June 14th, runs through the 21st. So you don't have much time to sign up, but it is one of our more healthy promos that we do once or twice a year. It is the Motley Fool promo. You're probably familiar with that website if you're not. But the promotion, it's a two-part one. You can get up to $500 for funding an account. The first one is customer gets $250 cash deposited into their account after funding with $5,000. The second one is customer gets another $250 deposited into their account after trading 20 times. And if you've ever seen the spread on a queue, you can buy the bid, sell the offer, and lose about $1. Obviously, there's small print involved, time frame, when it's paid out. All that good stuff can be found through our website. But I did want to put that out there because you have 5 days remaining. Actually, it ends the same day that Sebastian does his live talk at the SIBO, which Is he speaking live, or is it a webinar that you have to sign up for? He keeps confusing me on which one it is, or is it both?
I think this one's a webinar, so you don't have to be live in person for this one.
I kind of want to show up there and heckle him a little bit,
I'm sure he would appreciate that.
But on to the contingents, and then I'll hit the Chinese stocks. I had an interesting call today where a client put in a long. He writes condors, and kind of like what Paul Price had said in the interview block. He had found Apple here. He's writing Strangles on here. And, I think he said maybe the 300 put in the 350 or 360 call. And looking at the chart, you can see that Apple has been in that range since January. Well, the condor, just a four-legged spread where you kind of cap your risk on the upside and downside. It's a very popular product here. And as I said before, we only hold margin on one side. So if you're I'm bearish on this stock to neutral. Let me write a bear call spread, and then you realize, this thing, I'm completely neutral. I can leg into a bull put spread here, and I won't be charged any commission. You're essentially doubling your profit, depending on what you get for the put credit. But it's a very popular strategy at Options Express. I think it's gaining popularity among retail people across the industry. But we have orders here, which is nice at Options Express. One of the popularities of our platform has been the unique and advanced orders that we offer. With the new all-in-one trade ticket, you can now put a contingent order on the condor to close out the position if the stock reaches a certain price. Okay, so maybe if it's moving up, you want to close the entire spread, the four legs, if that Apple gets up to 350, and you wrote the 350, 360 bear call spread with maybe like a 290, 300 bull put spread. The problem is, and the exchanges, as you guys probably know, don't accept trailing stops, don't accept one triggers two, and they don't accept contingent orders on four-legged spreads. Surprise, surprise. A problem can happen or arise when maybe you write that condor, put in a contingent order to close out if Apple gets up to 350. And then as we get closer to expiration, we get up to 350. That order triggers to close down the entire condor at market. Well, a lot of people have this feeling that the floor traders and market makers, exchanges are supposed to make markets on everything. Well, it's just not the case. And yesterday we had a condor go off where I believe it was on the SPX or the RUT when we were at our lows. And there was no bids for the client to sell to close, I believe it was his puts, maybe his calls. But either way, there was no bid. And if we can't sell something to anybody, even at a penny or even at cab, which we will try, you're not going to get out. And today when the customer realized he actually got a partial fill, he got 1 of 30. Next day he realizes, hey, I'm still in this position, I wanted to get out. He thinks it's an execution issue when really there just is no bid. So at times you cannot be covered on your contingent orders, even though you have a GTC contingent order in there to close out the entire position. You could still run into issues like the one today. Now, we do have an execution desk that monitors these, but it's very hard to find these in the system that we currently have. We set up a new procedure, so hopefully we'll be catching these going forward. And what we ended up doing was legging the customer out today and then crediting him for the debit he was due yesterday. That's kind of how we roll at Options Express. We made the guy good on the price he would have got yesterday, which was better. If it had been better today, we would have given him today. We're pretty fair along those lines. So
Christmas on the trading desk. Christmas in June on the OX trading desk.
It's slow, and you're like, oh, maybe we need all these commissions. We need the commissions that we have. But I have to say, working for Options Express, we are always very fair. When silver had a lot of issues, those 2 weeks, I had to make a lot of accommodations to accounts, give away a lot of money, and every time we did what was fair to the customer. Every time. One other thing I want to mention as is expiration, or two things I should say. Futures are expiring. If you hold June index futures options, realize that they go off at 8:30 Central in the morning. And if you don't want to have your short option premium or margin requirements tied up until the settlement comes out 2 to 3 hours later, maybe on Saturday for the RUT, you're going to want to close those out prior to 8:30 a.m. Central. You would not believe the spike in calls we get on people wanting to use the funds from the from an expired futures option, and they won't get that for 2 to 3 hours later on the EM and the S&P. We also have dividends on the most popular ETFs. Ex-dividend date is tomorrow, the 17th. The big one, SPY, is a 63-cent approximate dividend. I think they just announced today. I'd have to check Bloomberg and see what the exact amounts are, but you have the diamonds, the Qs, a lot of XL, add your other letter here. I'll have dividends tomorrow. So if you were short calls today and you were near the money and less than time premium, I hope you got out, because you may see some assignment risk and you are liable for that dividend. And the last thing is the Chinese stocks. That list, I said, continues to grow each month or each expiration. Again, the OCC has removed their automatic exercise. I'll just run through these securities as well. If you're an Options Express holder and you are in some type of spread for a June expiration in any of these securities, I'd recommend giving us a call, because there's a good chance you could be assigned. And if you don't tell us to exercise, we will not exercise these in the money options. So WBD, WATG, HQS, and there was a big one here. We have about 40 people in them, I believe. CHBT. So take a look at your positions page. If you're short June, if you're long June options, or even if you're in a spread and you think you're going to be covered here, take a look at it. Give us a call. And we can exercise those manually for you, even if you're in a cash account. Those are the things I wanted to cover. That's kind of a lot with expiration, but and that being a quarterly as well. But it should make for a good time. Triple, quadruple witching tomorrow, right?
A lot of info to get over there, sir, but well done. And that is a good point to make, that if the automatic exercise is indeed canceled for those names, then you do need to let your broker know what you want to do with those long legs, because they're not going to do it for you, that's for sure.
And think about it this way. I've actually seen this happen. The guy writes a 15-20 bull put spread, and the stock, halted at, I don't know, right around $16. So he's got a $4 loser there, minus his credit. Okay, most likely because it's halted, it's going to open a gap lower by about $5 or $6. Who knows? But it's most likely going to open up all lower, like CCME has and CAGC. Now, I'm aware that some broker dealers aren't allowing people to exercise these options because they've been halted. So if you're in that situation, you definitely may want to exercise that option, because of the fact that the other firms may not let them exercise, and you could end up going from a huge loser on a bull put spread to being, those in the money options being abandoned, and then you exercise your puts. Now you're short the stock gaps lower by $5 or $6, and you have to make a healthy profit. It's interesting.
Yes, and to give our listeners a little bit of an update, the RIMM earnings came out as John was talking, and the stock was halted for a while. It just opened up, and the RIMM earnings were not exactly stellar. Yeah, sell. It was like two saws losing that side of the equation. The stock, it closed at 35.33. It got down to about 29.5 just a minute ago. Now it's trading about 30.5. So I wouldn't be surprised, given to see we saw about 30,000 plus June 30 puts going up today. There's 10,000 more in open interest. I wouldn't be surprised to see this pin at 30 tomorrow. So stocks looks like it's hovering around the 30 strike right now, vacillating around at 29.5, 30.5. Less than stellar news for RIMM.
What was the straddle trading for? Did you guys say before?
Oh, the straddle went out at 340 at 370. The 35 straddle.
That's a sweet straddle.
Yeah, that one actually paid off if it opens up here tomorrow. All those June 40 call buyers, I don't know what you guys were smoking. But that one, I was on the Grigas side of the train with that one. Looks like our Strangles going to probably work out all right. That was just too enticing, given all these vol levels out here these days, not to want to play in that. And love to play with some gamma, some pure front month gamma, always fun. But that is going to do it for the Express Block. Thank you, Mr. Grigas. And with that, we're going to roll right into the Strategy Block.
The Strategy Block.
And welcome to the Strategy Block. And I know, listeners, you've all been chomping at the bit since the beginning of the show when Uncle Mike teased his make $1 million with no effort strategy in Ford. So, Uncle Mike, with that build-up in place, have at it, sir.
Yeah, it's more along the lines of not lose a few $1,000s and only lose a few $100s, hopefully.
Should we call this your Ram Man special in Ford?
Oh, I like that. The Ram Man special. Yeah, we will. Sure. Hopefully it doesn't. Hopefully it doesn't get eaten up by Skeletor and Hordak and Evil Lyn and all the bad folks over there. And Beast Man, what was the other guy's name?
There you go, Beast Man. Yes,
he'll get you.
All kinds of good ones over there.
Anyway, what I want to bring up today, a lot of times and throughout my trading career, I have run into people that have originated a position with a short put. I'm going to XYZ stock is at 30. I'm going to sell the 27.50 put because I wouldn't mind owning that stock at 27.50 anyway, and why not collect a little premium? Okay, fair enough. We do that strategy all the time. Stock goes to 27.30. Hey, I'm in the stock. I wanted to be in it anyway, and you know what? I got some premium to get into it. I'm excited. Now, you know what? Let's go to town again. Let's sell the 27.50 covered call. Sell the 27.50 covered call. Everything's going according to plan.
But sounds familiar. It sounds like something we just heard in our interview block.
It does. Now, here's where I want to expand on that. What if the stock actually goes down? That's something that it's kind of like the missing link to that strategy. And the question that you have to ask yourself if the stock is going down is, first off, do I believe that this stock can be beneficial over a longer period of time? And if the answer is no, well, then you have to sell the stock. However, if the answer is yes, then it's worth holding on to. Now, right now, we are going through one of these periods with Ford. Like we were saying earlier, Ford has a lot of short-term paper cuts going on right now. Based upon the earnings aren't quite going to be exactly what they were supposed to be. I think it was going to be 62 cents instead of 64 cents. And they have a lot of little short-term things that are just kind of like nagging injuries. Well, the way with which we like to deal with nagging injuries over the short term is with Band-Aids. And we like to view the covered call as a Band-Aid. Now, let's say, for example, let's get back to XYZ stock. Stock's trading now at 22. Now, granted, that's probably a little bit more than what let's say it's trading at, say, 24. So, you know what? You can get some pretty decent premium by selling the 25 calls on XYZ stock. But, Mike, wait a minute. If it goes above 25, then I'm locking in a losing position. And in my opinion, I say, so what? Once it goes up to 25, then you can roll up and out. You can do all sorts of rolling activities to kind of work with it. But in the meantime, if the stock's not at 25 yet, then there's no law that says you're not allowed to sell a covered call on it. Folks, a covered call is a Band-Aid for a hedge. Band-Aids work excellent on paper cuts. So if your stock is giving you some nagging injuries or some paper cuts, then a covered call is something that can work very well. Now, especially in something like Ford, where, now granted, there's no guarantees that Ford's going to go up or stay sideways or even exist tomorrow for that matter, but Ford is paying some pretty generous premium on a lot of their covered calls. So when doing that, you actually have the ability to collect some premium and kind of weather the storm of a stock's paper cuts in the near term. Now, let's say that Ford were to go from $12.83 down to $2, folks. That's not a paper cut. That's a severed jugular. And Band-Aids don't work very well on severed jugulars. So for that, you need the heavier artillery, and that's where puts need to come into play. But over the near term, covered calls can be a great bit of healing medication for a stock that's not doing exactly what you want to in the near term, but that you have patience to wait on for the long term.
You know, that was something I wanted to ask Paul. I don't think we had time to get into it. Was he was talking about having these short strangles on with his long equity position. I wanted to ask him, what does he do when he goes down to that short put strike? Is he doubling down on his stock position at that point, or what's the plan for the downside? We didn't get a chance to really hash that out. Maybe we'll have to bring him back on to discuss that in general. Maybe that's how dentists roll. They swing the short premium and they live high.
He just picks stocks that never go down, I bet.
I like it. I like it.
He did. That's the best way to do it.
He seemed to give himself a little more room on the downside. His calls were, you know what I mean? It seemed like he was buying, I don't know, buying stock and selling puts a little bit more room than when he was writing the call.
All right, Uncle Mike, thank you for that, as usual. A good summation of what to do and what's happening out there in Ford right now. And I know a lot of our listeners are probably having that same problem. They're getting nickel and dime to death. Million little cuts in a name that has some good future outlook. Just the near-term pent-up garbage that's been plaguing Ford for years is still plaguing them, even though they have a lot of interesting developments going on. So I think a lot of our listeners right now are trying to figure out ways to play that name and maybe trying to do the same thing a little bit with Cisco. So thank you, Uncle Mike, for that. And now we're going to roll right into Around the Block.
Around the Block.
And welcome to Around the Block. This is a section of the show where we discuss what is indeed going to be happening for the next few sessions. And one quick final RIMM update. Now we're hovering almost exactly at the 30 handle here, 30.10 at 30.20. So, yeah, it looks like RIMM has settled down around that 30 strike, at least in the after hours. Not entirely surprising given all the activity on that strike today. That was probably, looks like that was the most active strike of the bunch today in RIMM with over 30,000 contracts going up. And we also had a lot of numbers coming out this week. We had housing starts today as well as initial jobless claims, all of which didn't exactly help the situation today. And that's pretty much it, except for Michigan sentiment and leading indicators tomorrow. Not too much else on the earnings front. I know if Sebastian were here, he'd want to talk about what his outlook is for downside in SPX and in the VIX, and it's looking like people are finally starting to find religion when it comes to downside in the S and finally starting to bid up some of that skew and do what we've been talking about on this show for months now, which is actually, hey, it's not a bad time to, if you are uncertain about these levels, and hell, who isn't in the broad market, then put on some downside protection so you can at least sleep at night and keep some of the gains that you've made. It looks like people are finally starting to do that given the trading activity and the pricing activity we're seeing in SPX and VIX today. What else are you two guys watching, sir? We'll start with you, Mr. Grigas.
Yeah, those two numbers and expiration. I was going to say, it doesn't feel as good to trade with protection, but it is a lot safer in the long run. So maybe those puts are a good thing. Maybe I'll put some protection on for
I'm
next week.
so glad Sebastian's not here for what you just said.
Are you giving our listeners bad habits, sir?
Come on, that was an underhand right there. I just lobbed it. It's an assist. No, I mean it's expiration. Like I said, it's quadruple witching, single stock futures, options, everything. But it is quiet. So, I'm hoping that some of these people that are sitting on the sidelines because of the worry, you can profit in derivatives, whether the market moves up or down or sideways. That's what I always say. So be watching the Greek outcome. I think that more of that's going to happen over the weekend than tomorrow. That's really about it. I mean, it just seems slow,
Tell me again, you can make money even when the market moves sideways. Tell me again how these derivatives work.
It can. It's interesting. You sell insurance. You don't buy it.
When in doubt, palms out. There we go.
Yeah.
Or the old floor traders mantra. And
sell the 80s, buy the Mercedes. Right?
Mr. Tusa, aren't you glad you missed out on all that fun stuff? Speaking of which, Ram Man, what are you looking at for the foreseeable future?
Numbers, man. We had 1250 is a number that we were talking about on the S&P. Or the 1250 area. I know we closed 2010 at the 1257 number, and like to see if we violate it, and we haven't as of yet. I know the low of the day on the SPX today was 1258, so we're at a very interesting spot right now in the market from a technical standpoint. And also oil fascinates me just by how fast it dropped earlier this week, so I'm watching it. Don't know if I'm going to do anything with it, but I'm definitely watching it. It is an interesting thing to watch at this point.
Yeah,
it's nice to see those gas prices below $4 for a change.
Yeah, no kidding.
You make the big bucks over at OX. You don't pay attention to these little niggling things like gas prices, sir.
I got Gas Buddy right on my Android phone. Where's the cheap gas at? Let me save $1.
Looks like that 12.5 leg of that Strangle is going to pay off before the 1300 leg, Uncle Mike. Of course, you only have one day to do it, because one day for it to pay off, because you did go June. You went all in.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
All right, and that is going to do it for this Masters of the Universe edition of the Option Block. I want to thank all of the assembled Masters for coming on the show today. And since Orko couldn't make it, I'll let him have the first plug. Good old Orko. Surf on over to orko.com if you want to learn more. No, actually, it is optionpit.com, and check out his life vest, life jacket program over there. You can email Mark at optionpit.com to learn more. And go ahead, throw the guy a bone and sign up for his webinar. And if it is, next time he does have an in-person webinar, you can join up with Grigas and go there and heckle him in person. I'm sure he would appreciate that. And now, Evil Lynn, what is coming up over on the OX side for the next few sessions?
Evil Lynn, that's me. The promotion is the big thing for the week. I mean, it's a deal, $500, $250 for opening an account with $5,000, another $250 for making 20 trades. I mean, if you're going to trade anywhere and you need a great platform, and Forex, we have people actually trading it now. It's actually a lot more popular than I had imagined. I guess it's a commission-free deal that Forex kind of invites, but realize that obviously there's a spread and there are no free lunches in this world.
Except at OX on Expiration Friday, is that not correct?
Except when you're buying a closed penny options.
Yes, that's true. When you're doing that, that's when I'm paying for your lunch and everybody else's lunch over there, sir.
They have a great lunch on Expiration Friday.
I can't believe you remembered that. That's right. Yeah, I didn't even. Yeah, and Monday.
Those are the only times I ever showed up to work.
I know.
The guy used to be a lineman. He knows lunch.
Oh,
he was the guy that was taking second and thirds before the trade desk even got off the seat yet.
Yeah, I don't think you want to go after Tusaw to the free lunch. Be slim pickings left.
They took care of you at OX. They got plenty of pickings there.
Speaking of Ram Man, sir, what is coming up on your Eternian calendar for the next few sessions?
We are the Ram Man is flying with the Condor on Sunday night. We got our weekly webinar, so stop on by our website, Flying with the Condor. The Condor flies again, and love to have you.
And over on Snake Mountain here in Skeletor Land, if you are interested in checking out more of the interesting or unusual activity that we discussed on the show, or a lot of this activity we just didn't have time to get to today, or any of the breaking developments from the options market, or any of the education or analysis or many other features that we have on the Options Insider, as well as our numerous other radio shows on the Options Insider radio network, then surf on over to theoptionsinsider.com, and I'm sure you'll like what you find. If you want to leave us some feedback, then be sure to do so in the Option Block forum right there on our forum section, or even the more daring among you can leave a voicemail at 312-544-9356, and we'll look forward to hearing from you. That is going to do it for this Eternian episode of the Option Block. I want to thank all of our listeners out there for downloading and streaming and subscribing to this show, and we'll see you next time right here on the Option Block.
And the masters of the universe. I am Adam, Prince of Eternia and defender of the secrets of Castle Grayskull. This is Cringer, my fearless friend. Fabulous secret powers were revealed to me the day I held aloft my magic sword and said,
Become a part of the Option Block. Just visit www.theoptionsinsider.com/forum to post a question for the hosts. You can also submit questions to twitter.com/optionblock or leave a voicemail at 312-544-9356. Make it interesting and your question just might make it on the air. The Options Block is property of the Options Insider Incorporated. All rights reserved. The preceding program was a presentation of the Options Insider Radio Network. For more programs, visit www.theoptionsinsider.com/radio or search for Options Insider Radio in iTunes.